methods. I'll start with charrettes. Charrettes are participatory activities where we use a combination of drawing activities, and I've developed, for example, the use of colored Post-it notes to identify the assets and vulnerabilities. And we even use flip charts with a lot of brainstorming, interactive activities. Eventually, we develop adaptation options, co-designing with the local community members. The ideas come purely from the local communities. I also deploy visual surveys, which this is an example that I've deployed in Negril in Jamaica, where I provided the respondents to the survey with various adaptation options, from retreat and letting the water take its course to different types of protection and accommodation that range from the hard infrastructure interventions to the soft ecological working with water interventions. The third method that I deployed very recently in Toronto was participatory mapping. This was in collaboration with my then doctoral student, now Dr. Niloufar Mohtat, where we deployed participatory mapping using online tools, where we engaged the residents of Thorncliffe Park in justice-oriented adaptation interventions. For example, we asked them to identify on maps where they think we need to integrate blue and, if possible, green infrastructure as well in the urban landscape. I also conduct in all the locations I work with, and I worked across the globe, from Seoul in South Korea to Amman, Jordan, to Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island, and whatever lies in between. I deploy transect walks, and I work with local experts to take me on guided tours to explain to me the local conditions and interventions. The transect walks also help me understand local architectural and urban interventions typologies. I also meet with local experts, for example, through lectures and talks that are specific to me and my students. And I have one-on-one meetings with them. For example, the mangrove trees that you can see here, this was an analysis that was handed to me by experts in Trinidad and Tobago, where they identified 5 different types of the mangrove tree that range from the black and red mangrove to the cottonwood mangrove up on the mountain tops. And these kinds of data collection helped me produce designs similar to this award-winning design. It won an international design competition organized by the UN Habitat. And this was a design proposal that focused on nature-based solutions, on ecological designs in the island of Tobago, and focused on regenerating the mangrove and harvesting rainwater and replenishing underground water. More recently, I also worked with global mapping based on literature reviews, and I identified stream daylighting projects around the world. And I have this interactive map. You're all welcome to go to the website through the University of Waterloo and try this interactive map that provides information about stream daylighting projects around the globe. As part of this research project also, I delved into 3 cities, Amman, Jordan, and that's why I'm here now, and Seoul's Cheongjicheong stream, and 100 kilometers of Zurich streams that were lost over time. My methodology in these 3 cities looks something similar to this. These aerial photos from Amman, I collect historic aerial photos from these cities and historic maps and archives. I georeference and digitize all these maps to help me understand transition over time in the urban form and in ecological features, particularly the streams. I'm able, through these GIS data, to compare not only the transformation to the stream, but also various aspects of the cities based on the relationship with these nature-based interventions. For example, this is an example of the impact of the stream restoration on property prices in both Seoul and Zurich. In the city of Toronto, Niloufar Muhtat's doctoral dissertation focused on mixed methods, where we deployed modeling, and because the animations are lost, I'll move things around myself, where we carried out, developed a multi-criteria model that captured or was able to assess social vulnerabilities on the ground, flood hazard exposures, and the adaptive capacity of both the land uses and the town plans. We converted our measures into a survey with local experts who gave weighting for these measures based on their understanding of the context of Toronto, using analytic hierarchy process, AHP, and rating. And then we conducted overlay analysis. These are samples of the rating exercises with the planners. And then we conducted overlay analysis to yield maps similar to this, where we identified exposure to flood hazards throughout the city of Toronto, social vulnerabilities throughout, using various measures from income, family composition, immigration status, and so on. And then we also, based on the weightings provided by the experts, Toronto experts, the adaptive capacity of the town plan and the land uses. Once we collapsed all these layers of maps on top of each other, 4 neighborhoods stood out for us. Thorncliffe Park was the most vulnerable or at risk from flooding and socially vulnerable. The second one was Flemington Park. The third one was North Sound Jamestown. And the last one was Black Creek. I also developed a deliberative queue method based on my work in Amman on the loss of the urban stream. It's a combined method to better understand human perceptions and values. The deliberative queue, the conventional queue method, is a rank order exercise that is typically performed individually. It's a qualitative method that gives us more rigorous data that we can conduct factor analysis for, and I'll explain that in a bit. The deliberative queue method that I developed combines the focus group with the conventional queue method, gives us the same idea of a rank order exercise, but the major difference is that it's performed in groups where you can document the deliberations around the table. The queue method looks something like this. You have this inverted pyramid, and you have queue cards, queue sorts, and that have statements that are similar to the statement, for example, asking participants about urban water features in Amman, that they are important because, and every statement offers a subjective point of view. The participants collectively place these sorting cards somewhere along this pyramid, from a negative salience to a positive salience, where the neutral salience is the one that's in the center. So that forces the participants to make a decision around every statement, from the least they think to the most they perceive or they think. Then we conduct factor analysis, and I'll go through this, but I'm happy to answer any questions about how we conducted the correlation matrix, helped us identify, for example, patterns in the responses. We clearly identified 2 different groupings of responses among the participants through the factor array analysis. For example, we had a group of experts whose perception was focused on a technical water management paradigm, and another group that focused on ecosystems and their services, focusing on a sustainable management of water paradigm. So the first group were focused on water pollution, worry about disease, and so on. Looking at water as infrastructure, focused on the idea of we need to convert the streams to avoid the contamination, pollution, and so on. But the other group had a completely different perception, focused on ecology and urban ecology, gray and blue water infrastructure, and more of a soft intervention in the urban landscape. I'll stop here, thank you, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Luna. Thank you so much for your talk. Unfortunately, it seems like Wiki is having some audio issues, so they're not able to communicate right now through audio. But if anyone online has any questions, please put it in the chat. Or maybe if even people in the Wiki room have any questions, and also maybe they can put it in the chat as well.
Can I get to the chat here, just to explain something?
Oh, we can hear you, Dawn.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we will have a little time at the end of all 4 presentations for
okay.
questions. That it's already 10:30 Luna's time. I'm going to make a introduction. So if
Okay.
anyone
Sounds good.
please go ahead. That was a great whirlwind overview of participatory methods. Any questions in the chat for Luna? Any questions in the room for Luna at this point in time? Yes.
I was wondering, in a place like Toronto, how easy is it to get a variable study group?
In a place like Toronto, how easy is it to get a variable, I'm assuming, i.e. representative study group? For Luna?
So the methods that's a great question. The methods I deployed in the city of Toronto, where we used a combination of online surveys and online participatory methods. Niloufar exerted a lot of effort to make sure that there was representation from all members of the community. She reached out, and this work we carried it only in Thorncliffe Park. She reached out to community members, community leaders, civil society organizations that were working there. So it really requires a lot of effort on behalf of the researcher, whether, to be honest, in Toronto or in Amman. Amman is not much smaller than Toronto. It's actually around 4.5 million citizens. So for you to be able, as a researcher, to get a good representation, you need to have design on how you are going to recruit participants and have clear criteria. In Amman's case, for example, the criteria was we were looking for water experts. In Toronto, we had actually 2 different surveys, actually 3, the participatory mapping, the survey questionnaire with the members of the community in Thorncliffe Park, and the survey with the planning experts who are experts on Toronto flood mapping. And in all instances, we were clear on the population, the general population, and the sampling technique we were going to deploy for each group.
Great, thank you. Any other questions quickly? Sorry, Luna, you actually gave yourself extra time. Thank you. Adrian?
Have you ever dealt with like conflict in your participatory workshops?
The question is, have you ever dealt with conflict in your participatory workshops, especially apropos because we have Professor Keith Heigl here too?
That's a really, really good question. Yes, of course, not necessarily, of course, particularly when it comes to climate adaptation, not everyone sees the vulnerability or the risks from climatic hazards the same way. Not everyone experiences the same way, and the urgency is not the same for everyone. And actually, when I do these charrettes, I take teams of students with me, and we get trained on how you facilitate, as a facilitator, the discussion around the table. Sometimes it's not even conflict, actually. It's a dominant character among the participants that dominates the conversation. And yeah, I mean, some of us, like, we're outspoken, we share our opinions more confidently than others. And there are people who are quieter but have amazing insights that you as a facilitator, you need to be attentive to what's going on around you and make sure that you do not alienate anyone by asking them to be silent, but value their opinion, but at the same time, make sure that you give the floor to everyone else. So yes, this is this requires training, and I always work with my students when they come with me to the field and train them, and we actually do role play and how to deal with difficult situations. How do you balance the quiet people with the more outspoken and so on? But that's a really good question.
All right, fantastic. So thank you, Luna. We'll move on to Liam. Luna, if you can stay for the brainstorming, wonderful.